Hi there folks, Joel Self, Outdoor Instructor here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a different one. We're going to be doing another Q&A. However, I'm not the only one going to be answering your questions. This is actually going to work as a little bit of dialogue between myself and a guy called Niall, or you may know him as Instructor 101. Brilliant guy, and he'll be appearing on the screen in a couple of seconds. But before he arrives, I just want to quickly remind everyone that you can click both the subscribe button and the bell icon, so every time a new video comes out, you'll get a notification about it. Over on the other side of the screen, we've got Niall joining us. Hi, Niall. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Today's video, we're going to run through 5 questions. It might be that me and Niall have got exactly the same thoughts on everything, or we might have really different ideas. We'll just have to see how that's going to go. I have given Niall some prep time, so hopefully we've both sort of come up with some answers and we can be insightful-ish. So, Niall, would you mind just introducing yourself to everyone? Because obviously I've been over on your channel and your followers may know me, but my guys haven't necessarily met you unless they've popped over to your latest videos. So, if you could just let us know who you are and sort of where you are social media-wise, that'd be brilliant. And then we can also put links and bits to your channel and stuff.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, cheers, Joel. My name's Niall. I'm an outdoor instructor. I run a channel called Instructor 101, which is it's about trying to create a discussion for outdoor instructors so that they can have an even bigger impact on those that they work with. So that's the idea behind it. So places you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the moment. So that's where you can find me. I try to create lots of different resources. To share lots of articles on Facebook from various different people, including Joel. And I create lots of videos as well to try and create a discussion and thought process about what we do for our job.
Well, thank you for doing that, Niall. That's ace. So we'll go straight into this question. We'll kind of rattle through them and hopefully get all these answered. Question 1 was from Becca Moore asking, do you have a preferred knot for climbing? Doesn't specify indoor or outdoor, so kind of do with that as you will.
So where I went to initially was the rethreaded figure of 8. I think that is a favourite go-to knot, and mainly because it's simple, it's easy to check, because obviously that's really important. So you can double check things when you're doing our buddy checks and bits like that. What I also like is the fact that it's just sturdy. Like the loop when I'm tying it into my own harness, if I'm having to be attached to lots of different anchors that might be behind me or wherever, it's just easy to attach to and it can be pulled. I trust it more if it's being pulled in different directions as opposed to some other knots that other climbers might use. So that's where I go to first, and it's simple, it's easy to check, and lots of people know it.
Well, the figure of 8 is definitely one that I use a lot as well. Obviously one that I teach a huge amount to all my clients. So I definitely use it on trad. I tend not to use it so much on sport just because I like to fall off stuff quite a lot. So I use a bow there just to make it a bit easier to undo at the end of a long pitch. Normally kind of flip between the two. Question 2 came from a guy called Joe Hunt, who was asking, what leadership styles do you employ the most?
It wasn't that long ago I was discussing this with someone else, actually. So okay, so there's different styles. There's like autocratic style, you can have like a laissez-faire style as well, so a really laid back approach, and there's like a spectrum, and depending on who you go to or where you refer to, there's lots of different styles between. That aside, probably my go-to is more towards the autocratic end, but that's because of most of the work that I do is like taster sessions, or intro sessions. So that's generally why I probably use that more, because that's what I'm doing the most. Having said that, it's more about, it depends on the situation. It comes down to what you're trying to achieve at the time, what's appropriate to the client as well. Like if I was trying to, I'm sure, Joel, if you're coaching climbing, you're probably trying to get people more give people a chance to be a bit more independent, so they can climb on their own. So initially you might have one approach, and then you might change that over time as well. I mean, would you agree with that? I'm making a bit of an assumption. I've not seen you climb sessions, but
almost word for word said what I was kind of thinking about for this question. Again, it was one I had to go ahead and look up the different leadership styles, because if I'm totally honest, I've never thought about, do I conform to this style or that? So I think initially I'm sort of in the same boat with you in that more sort of structured style, and certainly with the beginners and taster sessions that I run, sort of very structured and very much I'm in charge and this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. But absolutely build more towards sort of Lefebvre's style as we progress people, because as you say, when you get into sort of coaching and developing people, you don't want to be telling them what to do absolutely all of the time. You give them more and more room for their own thoughts, their own development, their own decision making. And I think that's really key, that if you're working certainly more towards that coaching style, you're not always right there in people's pockets telling them how to do stuff. But yeah, I think it's like you say, it's a bit of a scale, and depending on where you're at with your group and what kind of sessions you're running, you're just going to vary your style accordingly, I think.
100%. Like, I'm thinking more about like the climbing world as well. Like, if you think about, if you were trying to coach someone to improve in their own climb, the order that you need to do this route: left hand, left foot, right leg. So, and you could go through that all the way to reach the top hold of that route or problem. But then as soon as you're not there and they come across a different problem, then they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. They won't be able to think to themselves as well. So you've got to try and give a bit of chance for them to make decisions as well. So, but sometimes there are times where you need to guide people, use principles to help guide that decision, educate people on that. So yeah, it is always going to vary.
Well, I think that sort of answers that one. Hopefully, Joe, that will be a sufficient answer for you. You did make me do a bit of research, so well done. Question 3 is a little bit of an interesting one, because it doesn't give a set context. So this is about rescue kit. Do you carry rescue kit? And if so, what? So I know the person who's asking does caving, they do climbing. So who knows kind of what area they're talking about there. But I'm going to sort of come in from a climbing standpoint. But Niall, I wonder if you maybe are also thinking climbing along this line, or if you've got some other thoughts as well.
Initially, I started thinking climbing, although I do a little bit of paddling personally myself as well. So I did have a bit of a think about that. I think people would probably expect me to go, yeah, definitely get this specific piece of gear or whatever, for a certain situation or certain sports. When I think back to any scenarios that I've actually had, and actually it's all within like personal stuff, to be honest, then the stuff that has become most relevant for the situations that I've been in is having a mobile phone and a first aid kit. Those are the bits that I've used. That's not to say like other kit isn't useful, obviously, because it's situation dependent. Say having the knowledge to use certain kit, or have some sort of research and taking the time to practice certain things, is probably more key. It's no good just having the piece of gear and then not knowing how to use it or apply it when you need to. So like in terms of climbing stuff, like it's, for me, like I'll always have like a couple of prussaks on my harness because I can do what I need to with that, and maybe a sling as well. And so that will cover me for the most part. Like a lot of the stuff I do is like single pitch stuff, so it's nothing like really massive or like a multi-pitch venue. So that influences a lot of stuff really for me. In terms of paddling stuff, I'll have a throw line when I'm kayaking, so I'll have that with me and I'll have that to hand. But the first aid kit is still with me. The mobile phone is still with me. And like I have other bits as well, like for different scenarios. I like to try and be prepared for that, because obviously that's what my job is as well. So I feel like there's a responsibility to look after each other as well.
I think you've raised a really big point there, which actually two of the most essential bits of kit that people maybe overlook are your mobile phone for getting hold of additional help, because all we're ever going to be able to do as instructors or in our own personal sort of climbing and outdoor activities is provide first aid. We're not doctors, we're not surgeons, we're not going to be able to fix people if they've kind of got themselves in a really messy situation. So, you know, having a first aid kit to provide first aid is 100% a must have. So we can do our job, but then a mobile phone so we can get hold of someone else is really, really key. And it's going to help in those more major situations. But I had a couple of ideas on some kit that I might carry when I'm out. So, I mean, I've got these just lying next to me. You know, massive, great pulleys like these are not something that I'm going to take, but they make a rescue easier. So I think the key thing with any rescue kit is to try and keep it as basic as you possibly can and as multifunctional as you can. So when I go climbing outdoors, I'll carry two prussics. I've got one that's a 60 centimeter length and one that's a 120 centimeter length. So they're similar sizes to slings that I might use. That means I can use them as a prussic, or I can use them as an extra sling. You know, if I get caught short, I can put them into an anchor somewhere. They've got other applications. But having two prussics allows me to do a couple of different bits, like escape system, prussic up ropes. So if I fall off in an overhang, I can sort of do self-rescue and get myself up again. So it's very situational as to what you carry. But as a general rule, two prussics will go on my climbing harness along with a knife, as probably a pulley as well. Not every time I go out, but most times I'll have a pulley or maybe a Petzl roll clip, which is like a funky carabiner with a pulley built into it. So those are kind of my key bits that I'd have. And then obviously if I'm route setting and doing rope access stuff, then yeah, I might have a bag on the floor somewhere with some more heavy duty stuff in, just for dealing with those situations. So yeah, I'm afraid, David, because I don't know what context you're asking your question in, I can't be too specific on what I'd carry, but hopefully between the two of us there, we've given you an idea of some things to think about, certainly. And I think, yeah, major priority, make sure you've got that first aid kit. So whether you're underground or overground, you've got that and you can start helping that person out. Question 4, hopefully this is a nice straightforward one for us, Niall. Sport or trad, and why? Asked by Rock Climbing Rich, who's another local instructor to me, climbs at the same wall, so really good bloke. I'm going to ask him this question at some point, I think, because I'd be interested to know his answer. But what do you think, Niall? Sport or trad?
Oh man, like, so this is like me asking you, like, what's better, land or water? In terms of like questions. My gut went with trad climbing. I do really enjoy it. It does feel like more of an adventure for me. But I don't know, like, if I was to like revisit the way that I was introduced to climb, so the way I was introduced to climbing was climbing walls, and then went up north to Yorkshire, Lancashire area where there's a lot of gritstone, really rounded holds and slopers and stuff like that. And doing trad, I felt like it was almost like one of the steepest learning curves I probably could have chosen. Like, I'm doing trad and make sure that I was learning all the extra bits behind it. And I feel like sport climbing is just a bit easier to access. I feel like it would have been more of a natural transition for me as it going through all the climbing stuff. So if I'd got introduced to sport beforehand, it would probably be a different answer. But having said that, I've loved trad. It's taken me to some really cool places and made me feel a lot more independent and given me a lot of knowledge as well.
I entered climbing as a trad climber. That was my introduction. And I've kind of talked about this in various other videos and bits and some posts that I've done. But my introduction to climbing was, yeah, through some pretty hard trad as a second, with very little sort of help into doing that. It was just kind of, I'll tie you onto this rope, lad, and then we'll go. And that was like, oh dear, so we're off. And yeah, so I had to kind of very quickly get to grips with what I was doing, taking gear out. But as part of that, learned how gear went in. And so I've straight off the bat, because I'm a massive rope nerd and knot nerd, and just climbing, well, just gets me really, really excited. But straight away, there was something that clicked about this gear that goes into the rock. And so I have been a massive guy for trad since the very beginning of my climbing career. I mean, I instruct indoors all the time, and I've instructed on sport as well. But Trad's just got this different thing for me. It's just really nice. You can go on some majorly cool adventures. If you've got those trad skills, you can go more places with it. You can go to far-flung mountains, or you can go to a local single pitch crag and really have an interesting, great time. It gives you the freedom to sort of go anywhere and try anything, because any rock feasibly could be led on trad, maybe, unless it's a super blank wall. So yeah, I'm going to proudly say that I'm a trad climber rather than sport climber, but I do like taking really big falls on bolts every now and again too.
Yeah, it definitely. I feel like trad opens up a lot more opportunities, doesn't it? For me,
so, yeah, definitely to get on some bigger stuff here in the UK. We don't have massive multi-pitch sport, so those bigger mountains are definitely dominated by a trad discipline. So you kind of have to be engaged with that if you're going to climb those bigger things. Our last question is from Megan Johnson. This kind of going back to instructing stuff now. Which qualification has been the most important to your role as an outdoor instructor? So yeah, if you want to take a lead on that one, Niall, and then I'll come back with my thoughts as well.
I got asked this question a few years ago. So a little bit of a background on me. So I worked in like more of like a leadership role at an outdoor activity centre. So I was like line managing a few like senior staff, and one of the senior staff came up to me and asked me this question. They want to try and work out where they should focus their attention. And my response at the time was actually a driving license, which is ridiculous. Like that is not the answer that I expected to give it at the time. And I think that person was a little bit shocked to say that. I think there's some truth in that. I know it's not necessarily the answer. I think people want me to say like it's like a climbing qualification, it's like a mountaineering qualification or a water sports qualification, something like that. But is for me at the time, that person's situation, it was about being able to access things. So yeah, that was my take on that.
No, I think that's really interesting, and actually sort of really resonates with me. When I left my trainee year and moved back home, I started offering to freelance for places, and suddenly I found myself on a train down to Cornwall, where I then had to cycle 3 hours from the train station to get to the centre, which is a really inefficient way of going to freelance when you're taking loads of climbing gear and everything else with you. Just doesn't work.
That's class.
It's an adventure, to be sure. I was going for 3 days. I think the whole trip took me 7 days and probably cost me way more than I was earning. But that's just the way it went. Sorry. So yeah, definitely a driving license is a massive thing for outdoor instructors. I think to get to any qualification, you're probably going to have to travel to go and do any course. So yeah, kind of a big stepping stone. But I did take a slightly different thought, which was the first qualification I actually went through in terms of climbing bits, which was the CWA. It's now called CWI. And it allows you to instruct on indoor walls or purpose-built structures. So outdoor climbing towers, things of that nature. And I sort of picked this one because I use it all the time. You know, I sort of manage a climbing wall for the local council, and that's meant that I really work as an indoor climbing instructor 5 days a week, and I have to be around and have that sort of skill set and mindset of indoor climbing coaching and instruction. I like that the CWA, certainly when I did it, I obviously don't know if there's been any changes since they made it CWI, but it had a lot more coaching input than the SPA, which is now the RCI. So although that was another brilliant qualification, I think that CWA just set me up really well to go to instruct both beginners at the starter sessions, their taster sessions, and then go right through to coaching people. And there are definitely some coaching awards that I'm taking a look at the moment that I would like to sort of progress towards. But that CWA for me was sort of a really big one and big career kickstart for me.
I guess the more direct answer is probably the one that I've used more is the CWA, now the climb wall instructor. That's probably what I've used more. I guess it's whatever you're passionate about as well. It's no good doing a certain qualification if you're not going to use it or enjoy it. I guess that would be the takeaway, I guess.
Some people get really hung up on what a centre's going to want you to have. Centres are going to want you to have, like Niall's just said there, you know, things that you're passionate about. If you go to instructor session for them as a freelancer and you turn up and you're a bit miserable about the fact that you're running canoeing for the day with a load of school kids, they're not going to want you to go back and freelance for them running canoeing again because you were a bit miserable and didn't get on with it. So if you get qualified in the stuff you love and the stuff you're passionate about sharing with people, then yeah, absolutely, centres are going to want you back because you make their clients feel really enthusiastic about things. So I think that's, yeah, like I say now, really key. Do stuff that you love and you're passionate about. That wraps up all 5 questions. Those were from Becca Moore, Joe Hunt, David Webb, Rock Climbing Rich, and Megan Johnson. So thank you to all of those guys for the questions. Absolutely, thank you to Niall as well for joining us to answer them. I think it's been really interesting to have kind of 2 different viewpoints, and hopefully it's given people a little bit more food for thought. But yeah, that hopefully is a new style of video that we can maybe look to replicate now and again going forwards. Maybe having Niall back because it's such a pleasure to talk to you, and maybe, you know, get some other people involved as well. So if you're another instructor who fancies coming along and having a chat, that would be brilliant. Do let me know. And for everyone who's following, 100% you can go over to Niall's channel and check out Instructor 101. He's a great guy, really great content, especially if you're into instructing. I find his videos super helpful. So yeah, definitely go check it out. But for now, I think we're gonna draw things to a close. So thank you again to Niall joining us. And of course, a really big thank you to all of you guys who are supporting the channel and have managed to watch all the way through and get to this point of the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and there's been a couple of questions off to the side throughout this, so do pop your answers to those down in the comments below. I've loved making this video with Niall. He's a brilliant guy, and I hope you've enjoyed. For now though, I've been Joseph Outdoor Instructor. Goodbye.